twice.
The time by Jamaica Mountain Peak Golden Turmeric Latte is
12 p.m.
Thanks so much for joining us for CVM News at noon for Thursday, May 30, 2024. I'm Carolyn Brown. Well, in Kingston today, the Supreme Court will rule on Vybz Kartel's habeas corpus application, potentially impacting his detention status ahead of a pending retrial for murder. Our reporter, Ramon Gordon, is on location ahead of the 2 o'clock ruling.
There's increased police presence here at the Supreme Court in downtown Kingston, where a judge is set to rule on Vybz Kartel's habeas corpus application. Now, habeas corpus is a legal concept that ensures people can't be held in jail without good reason. It gives individuals the right to challenge their detention in court. Kartel-born Adija Palmer and his co-accused Sean Storm Campbell, Kahira Jones and Andre St. John were convicted in 2014 for the 2011 murder of Clive Lizard Williams. However, their convictions were quashed in March by the Privy Council due to juror misconduct. And the case was sent back to the Court of Appeal to decide on a retrial. The habeas corpus application argued by attorney Isaac Buchanan asserts that there is no legal basis for the continued detention of Palmer, Campbell and St. John, as the Privy Council did not order their release or address the issue of detention. Buchanan argued that without an order from the higher courts, the men should be released. Well, we'll find out the outcome of those arguments later today. Ramon Gordon on location at the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Ramon. And before the end of our newscast, we will want to hear from an attorney more on that situation. We can tell you that commuters who use public passenger vehicles are being reminded to be vigilant in choosing who they travel with. Now, that comment was reinforced by the managing director at the Transport Authority, Ralston Smith, following the seizure of a number of vehicles operating without the requisite documentations.
Use a smart device to scan the barcode that is displayed on the front windshield of the public passenger vehicles to determine whether or not the vehicle is suitable for the service that it is offering. So when you scan the barcode, it gives you basic information on the owner. So it would basically tell that the vehicle is owned by John Brown. It would also tell you whether or not the vehicle is licensed to operate as a stage carriage, a hackney carriage, or route taxi. In the case of route taxi and stage carriage, it would indicate the particular route for which the vehicle is licensed to operate. And it would tell you whether or not the license is valid or is expired. And based on that, you can make your determination to travel in a properly licensed motor vehicle. So the mere presence of the red plate on the vehicle is not sufficient to say that the vehicle is fully fit and proper. It requires a license that is renewed every year in the case of a hackney carriage and route taxi, and every 4 years in the case of a rural stage or express carriage, and every year as well in the case of a contra carriage.
He also says the state entity is committed to sustaining a presence on the nation's roads.
Our operations are sustained. The Transport Authority will have put out every single day different types of operations right across the country. What happens in this particular instance is that we're bringing focus to a particular issue that we are treating with. So, for example, we executed 212 routine operations in the month of April. We did 119 special operations during the month of April, and we carried out 18 operations that were driven by intelligence that we gather in the field. So if you look at that alone, we would have executed 349 operations across the space, separate apart from our regular static enforcement activities that we carry out at various focal points across the country.
The government, in anticipation of an active hurricane season, has strengthened preparation efforts. Already, visits have been made to high-risk parishes and discussions held on potential protective measures for residents. On Wednesday, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development were in St. Anne, where they were joined by newly appointed Chairman of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, Dennis Chung, who also highlighted the agency's plans for the season.
The government of Jamaica maintains a national disaster fund which exceeds now $550 million. And I remember distinctly, Minister Mackenzie, you'll recall when we started to look at that national disaster fund, which was $100 million at the time. It was not funded. And we put the money in to fund it. And I believe you have it there at local government. Yes, so what we did, we started to put aside funds as buffers that in the event that a low intensity, high frequency event happens, we don't have to borrow to deal with it.
Now, while there is uproar about the Caribbean Examination Council, CXC's removal of some STEM subjects, other stakeholders believe the move was done in benefit to the region rather than on a local level. Speaking on Lead Story Wednesday, member of Jamaica Association of Secondary Institutions, Ed Wallace, and the opposition spokesperson on education, Damien Crawford, explained the council gave the basis under which the courses could continue.
It's not a very good argument because indeed the reason why we've picked STEM as a winner at this time is because we are short on the skills in the science technology area. So we know that, and that is what we're trying to build. To take out STEM subjects at this point in time runs counter to that objective. And it's not only for Jamaica, but also for the whole Caribbean, for Caribbean development. We know that it's going to hit us hard as a nation, but for Caribbean development, it's a big deal.
What I do believe, however, is that the arguments have been exaggerated. For example, agriculture double major is not the average agriculture courses that we always do. The CFC single option agriculture remains, but the double option, which didn't get a lot of persons, that would have been a winner. So the major problem, I believe, is that the students are not encouraged to participate in these courses, partially because teachers might not be available.
Stay where you are. News Afternoon will continue right after this.
I'm death.
Ready, baby?
Ward off death. Obey the road code. A message from the Road Safety Unit in the Island Traffic Authority.
Recycling partners of Jamaica. Yeah, we got to make a change, and we have to do it now, can't wait for later. We put plastic in its place, and we all can agree that will be safer than in the gullies and in the drains. Recycling partners of Jamaica. We put plastic in its place, yeah, the place have to clean. PET, that up polyethylene, HDPE, buckle up get screen. Baby to granny, everybody roping. Yeah, we got to go green, you know what I mean. See the sign from the bin, if we drop it in through car window, you flick, that another thing. And we don't want no garbage in this game. No, we handle it up, bug them are not the same. So listen up, Jamaica, I'm saying it's time to make a change. Recycling partners of Jamaica. We put plastic in its place, and we all can agree that will be safer than in the gullies in the heavy rains. Recycling partners of Jamaica. We put plastic in its place.
Welcome back. At the top of the news, we told you that the Supreme Court will rule on the Vybz Kartel's habeas corpus application, potentially impacting his detention status ahead of a pending retrial for murder. And now for a better understanding of what will be happening at the Supreme Court today, the habeas corpus application was filed by Vybz Kartel's attorneys about 2 weeks ago. And so the verdict is being anticipated. Joining us now to help us understand what this application is about and the possible results from today's hearing is Attorney at Law Lloyd McFarlane. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Carlin.
Right. So we want to first ask you to help us better understand what is a habeas corpus application.
The whole principle of habeas corpus has been around since Magna Carta in England. That was when certain nobles and so on wrestled certain rights from the king. And one of those rights was that no person would be detained or imprisoned without lawful justification. In other words, essentially, you should be charged with something or you should be released. We have been using the application or writ for habeas corpus for as long as our courts have been in existence. And what normally would happen is that if someone was arrested by the police and was thrown into some police station, some lockup, and not brought before the court within a reasonable period of time, his lawyer would then make an application for a writ of habeas corpus, which essentially says, bring him before the court and release him or show why he should not be released. In that event, the police would have to come forward and say something like, well, he's been held for identification period or something pending some charge, and the judge would then make a ruling. In our case, in relation to, although Kartel and others were charged with murder, tried and convicted, when the matter went to the Privy Council in England, the conviction or the convictions were quashed. But the Privy Council did not actually dismiss the charges. They have sent it back to the Court of Appeal to decide whether or not there will be a new trial ordered or the Court of Appeal will dismiss. So what has happened is that with that situation of what the defense lawyers for Kartel called a lacune, they have made a writ, made an application to have Kartel and the others released from prison on the basis that, look, if his conviction was quashed, why is he still being held? On what legal basis are they actually now being held? The problem that the Kartel lawyers have is that, as I've said, the charges were not dismissed. So it may well be that the court will decide, well, look, he's still properly subject to charges until those charges are dismissed. So we will see what the court will have to say.
Actually, I wanted to ask, what are the possible outcomes from today?
Well, the possible outcomes from today are essentially, well, the most likely outcome is that the judge who is dealing with the matter will say, well, let us wait and hear what the full panel Court of Appeal says will happen to the matter. In the meantime, the writ of habeas corpus application may well be denied pending the outcome of what the full Court of Appeal will say. So if the Court of Appeal says the charges are dismissed, then the matter becomes entirely moot. If the Court of Appeal says, look, we are now going to order a new trial, then the matter must go through the same processes as any other matter where charges are before the court. In other words, they will be going back before the Home Circuit Court. Applications for bail can be made at that time, and at that time, the DPP's office will look to see what type of case they will have to present. In other words, it's going through the whole process over again.
So let's just say I just want to ask you to reinforce this for me. Let's say it's denied, the appeal is denied. What can the lawyers do? Can they appeal?
In terms of the habeas corpus application?
Yes, sir. If the decision is that the application is denied.
Well, a habeas corpus application is a specific type of remedy that is sought. And ordinarily, because they have actually gone to the Court of Appeal in terms of making it. And because the Court of Appeal is in charge of the matter, there really is nothing else to do but to wait to hear what the Court of Appeal says on the outcome of everything else.
And if granted, how soon could things, become natural? A natural flow?
Well, it really is going to be a matter of what the Court of Appeal orders in relation to whether or not there should be a new trial. It really comes down to just waiting on what the Court of Appeal would say.
So on June 10, there will be another court ruling. Explain the difference there in comparison.
Well, what has happened here is that the lawyers, in making and asking for the habeas corpus, did not have to go through to the full court. A single judge of the court could handle that and make a determination on that. But on June 10th, you say is the date. That is when the full court will hear everything in relation to the arguments, essentially, that there should be no retrial order. That is really the nub of everything. Because if the Court of Appeal decides that no retrial should be ordered because of the length of time the matter has gone on or anything else, that is the end of the matter. If the Court of Appeal, however, says we are ordering a new trial, and the Court of Appeal may well take that position, because it is noteworthy that the Privy Council could have dismissed the charges, but the Privy Council itself would not be able to order a new trial. The fact that the Privy Council sent it back to the Court of Appeal to make these determinations would suggest that the Court of Appeal is likely to order a new trial.
Just before you go, sir, and thank you so much again for joining us. Of course, we do have a full audience at this time. Is there anything you would want to say to Jamaicans otherwise?
Well, we should have confidence in our court system and our judges, and I'm sure that they will take into account fully all along the evidence that is available and make a proper decision on that.
Thank you once again, Attorney at Law Lloyd McFarlane.
You're welcome.
Let's continue now with our international news. Israel now has control over the entire land border of Gaza. The Israeli security forces maintain they found tunnels used by Hamas to smuggle weapons into Gaza. But Egyptian TV sources have denied this, claiming this is Israel's justification of their military operation in Rafah. Since the operation, humanitarian aid into Gaza has decreased, and Israel contends it must take Rafah to achieve victory in the Israel-Hamas war. We get more from the BBC.
It's a really important piece of ground for Israel. If you think of any military force that's attacking an adversary, I mean, one of the things you want to do is surround that adversary. You want to cut that adversary off from supply. And Hamas almost certainly wasn't getting supplies through Israel. So Israeli suspicion has always been on the border with Egypt. Certainly military planning would assume that there was some permeability of that border, whether it was the Rafah crossing, whether it was tunnels. Obviously, Egypt would argue with that. But from the Israeli point of view, controlling that border cuts Hamas off from further supply, or does a lot to stop it from doing that. It also stops this safe haven, as you've heard there, this use of that border area as an area that Israel can't really strike because it's too close to Egypt. It's an area that Hamas have used to stockpile weapons, to launch weapons from. And we've seen examples of that. And of course, the Israelis have found launch positions of rockets. So we're exploiting the position. So very important, what we call sort of vital ground or key terrain for Israel in this war.
This is CVM News at noon. We will continue with sports right after this.
Homeowners, property managers, plumbers, and contractors. Jamaica Plumbing Supplies is having a store-wide sale with up to 20% off. Need to upgrade your bathroom or kitchen? From pipes and fittings to fixtures, basins, showers, and bathtubs. Power your plumbing projects with our variety of tools. Hurry up! The discount lasts 1 week only, May 27th to June 1st. Visit us at 56 Malines Road or 62 Congreve Park, Portmore. Jamaica Plumbing Supplies. Let's save water. Condition supply.
I'm Tara Monique from Lashon Cosmetics, Jamaica's only vegan organic makeup brand. We are the exclusive